where I've been documenting my autistic brother here in Sweden. And the reason why I choose to document him was because in 2019, March 2019, he was taken to the courts in Sweden, in Södertörn, the Södertörns court in Sweden. He was judged as a criminal for having his autism, which was his meltdown. They claimed that he resisted and fought the police officers, which I find that to be ridiculous, because if you're somebody that is versed with the autism spectrum, you know something about the autism spectrum. Because my brother is in autism level 2 and he has his intellectual disability. So that day, the incident that the police are claiming that he fought and resisted him was a basic incident where... Hey guys, welcome back to Analysis with Janet. Here we talk about everything. Feel free to share your thoughts, your opinion, and whatever thing we're talking about, but always remember to be polite as you do that. So today I'm going to talk about my autistic and intellectual disabled brother, but I'm going to be talking in the aspect of how a medical doctor has so much power in Sweden to torture and use the disability of his patient to abuse the patient. So if a lot of you guys don't know, or you're still new to me, you know, those that have been following me for a while would know this, but those are new, I'm just going to give you a brief summary. So if you guys, a lot of you guys are still new or just following me for the first time, I have this page called My Autism Journey in Sweden, where I've been documenting my autistic brother here in Sweden. And the reason why I choose to document him was because in 2019, March 2019, he was taken to the courts in Sweden, in Södertörn, the Södertörns court in Sweden. He was judged as a criminal for having his autism, which was his meltdown. They claimed that he resisted and fought the police officers, which I find that to be ridiculous, because if you're somebody that is versed with the autism spectrum, you know something about the autism spectrum. Because my brother is in autism level 2 and he has his intellectual disability. And if you're versed with the autism spectrum, you know one thing about it is that some autistic people tend to be aggressive. Some have learning disability. Some have ritualistic behavior. And some don't even understand abstract things. My brother has his ritualistic behavior, which is he likes to wash money. He takes money out from the ATM and then he will wash the money and dry the money and try to see that the money is clean. That is just his thing that he does. So that day, the incident that the police are claiming that he fought and resisted him was a basic incident where he went to the shopping mall. He wanted to move money. Then he did not know that the shopping mall was supposed to close at 10 because he doesn't understand abstract things. My brother cannot read the time. You have to tell him the time. He's not good with the time because of his intellectual disability that is connected to his autism. So he doesn't really understand the time. So the security that was there told him that he had to leave the shopping mall. He cannot come in because they're about to close the shopping mall, because around 10 o'clock that he just left the house. Because sometimes he has this tendency of that you can just sit with him and then he will just disappear. He can just run, leave the house. So we didn't even notice that he had left the house because we thought maybe he was in his own room like that. And then after a while, we didn't see him. So we started calling. I was like calling the police. And we're telling the police how, oh, maybe he's missing because he has this tendency of just walking out and disappearing. He just leaves the house. And he's hyperactive. So he has a lot of energy. So he can really run. You cannot really control that. So we're calling the police that night. We're asking the police, oh, where we cannot find him, this and that. And the police did not even tell us that they had him in his custody. That's the number one thing. The Swedish police did not even tell us that. We're all worried. We don't even know what is happening to him. We're all worried. We're all confused. We're like, oh, like, where has he gone to and things like that. Then eventually, you know what the police told us? If the police are not worried, we should not be worried. And then we're like, but you have to tell us if you have seen him or if you have him or where he is. So at least my family can be in rest because of his disability. Everybody's worried. Because if you know one thing about this place, that they can just get missing. So my mom, everybody is just worried. Everybody's like, what has happened? What has happened? What has happened? No, the police has not told us anything. The next day, the police told us how they have him in his custody, in their custody. Me, I'm like, okay. How far? How did he get there? My family is trying to understand how he got there. They tell us how, oh, he got there in the fact that he had an altercation in the shopping mall, and the police were called, and then they said he fought and resisted them. Then my mom was like, he has a disability. The police were like, the police didn't even tell us that they're going to press charges first of all. So we had no idea. We now get a letter that the Swedish police are pressing charges. And I'm thinking, I'm shocked because I'm like, he has a disability. And my family at the time, my mom especially, she was working for a Swedish boy called Rudgar. That's a Swedish boy that has autism and intellectual disability too. He's in autism level 3. His own disability is even worse than my brother, because not only does he has this aggressiveness, he doesn't talk. Yes, he just bangs and bangs and bang things. So my mom is like talking to them and trying to explain to them. I'm also working as a caregiver here in Sweden. I'm also working for a Swedish boy that is autistic. And I cannot call that boy a criminal for having his meltdowns. Sometimes I go to work, he has meltdowns like 3 to 4 times a day. And I don't go around calling him a criminal. Sometimes he also disappears like my son would do. Sometimes he will just wake up to and run away, and then we call the police. So why are you guys pressing charges on my son? Because my son too is like that Swedish boy. So if the Swedish boy that has autism and intellectual disability cannot be called a criminal and I can go and work for him, so my son too also should have the same right. And they're like, oh, Becky, you don't get to tell us how to do in our system. We are Swedish. They're very rude and very arrogant. The Swedes are some rude and arrogant people that feel that nobody tells them what to do. They can do what they want, how they want. So they went ahead. The police came, the press charges, they called him a criminal. He was sentenced and sent to the Swedish maximum psychiatric facility called Kashuden. I know where Kashuden is. Kashuden is where they put the guy that is suspected of killing the prime minister in Sweden called Olof Palme. So if you guys don't know the story of Olof Palme was one of the Swedish prime ministers in Sweden that got killed after coming back from a movie. And there was this guy that is suspected that he killed the prime minister of Sweden. So they put him in that place called Kashuden. Kashuden is meant for hardened criminals. So imagine that they had to take somebody that is suspected, that thought that killed their prime minister, and put in that kind of facility. So you can imagine the kind of people that go to that kind of facilities. This is the facilities meant for hardened criminals in Sweden. People that they know that they are too dangerous for the society. They can harm anybody. They have zero respect for anybody. That's where they judge and kill my brother. That means, according to the Swedish government and the Swedish people, an autistic and intellectual disabled black boy that had a meltdown has become the most dangerous human being in Sweden. So when he arrived in that place, my family was talking to the ladies. His doctor at the time was Jana Willem. So the woman, she was very rude and very arrogant. She told my mom how Mawe has, because I have tapes. And if you want to listen to the tapes that my family recorded with her, it's on my brother's Facebook page. You can go and watch, or his Instagram account. Those tapes are even on his TikTok page, where I have conversation with the lady that I recorded. And she was like, oh, he's a criminal. He has to prove to us that he's not going to commit that crime. And my mom and we're asking, what crime did he commit? Disability is not a criminal thing. You cannot tell a disabled person, an autistic and intellectual disabled person, that stop being disabled. It's like if you tell an autistic person stop being disabled, that means you're telling that autistic person that person choose to be disabled or choose to have the disability, which is kind of ridiculous, because nobody chooses to have a disability. People are born somehow along the line. Some people are born with their disability, circumstances put them there. So after he got there, as my family was not willing to see him as a criminal the way the Swedish government wanted us to see him, then they moved. The lady took 2 years. For 2 years, she denied us not to talk to him, not to see him, not to have any contact with him until we accept that he's a criminal. And my family denied that we're never going to accept that as a criminal. So we started documenting the process, where we started calling every night and we'll ask that we want to talk to Emmanuel, my autistic brother. They'll be like, oh, you cannot talk to him, he's on restriction. Or they'll tell us that he's on restriction, or they'll tell us that we have been restricted not to talk to him. So that's how they'll do it, one way or the other. And so we're like, so why are you restricting him, or why are you restricting us? They're like, oh, it's a doctor's decision. And then when we ask that we want to talk to a doctor, they'll tell us how the doctor is too busy to talk to us. He has nothing to say to us, which the tapes are on his Facebook and Instagram page called My Autism Journey Sweden. There are more than 250 tapes that I've documented for those 2 years that she banned us not to talk to him, that I've put there how we call and how they'll treat us, mistreat us. I decided to start documenting it because a lot of people don't understand how abuse goes on in Sweden. Most times people think that Swedish people are the most nicest and lovely people, as they pretend to be. So I decided to start documenting the whole thing, which is on his page. And then in May, around ending of May 2022, the doctor now moved him to these other facilities called Verkö in another town in Sweden, in another facilities that is in another town in Sweden called Verkö. Now he's in this new place. In this new place, they're still calling him a criminal, and they still want my family to see him as a criminal, and they're still telling him that he committed a crime. And you know, the one thing I've told the Swedish government and the entire Sweden is that the last thing I will ever do is look at my autistic and intellectual disabled brother and call him a criminal. So as long as Swedish government wants to keep employing racists and Nazis and helping them to take black people and give it to them and try to brainwash black people and their entire families how they should see their loved ones to be criminals, so some group of racists and Nazis can abuse their loved ones. That's the one thing I've told Sweden, that I'm not going to let that happen. Because I've told them that as long as my brother is put in all these their hellish and Antwerp facilities that they have created in this country, that they are hiding black people's kids there and abusing, I'm going to keep documenting it. Because it's not about my brother. One of the reasons why I started documenting my brother is because I really discovered that a lot of black people in Sweden fall victim of this kind of a thing. A lot of black people have disabled people here in Sweden, but they don't come out to talk. And people will be like, oh, why don't you talk about your disabled loved one? Because in Sweden, not only do they take your loved one from you that is disabled, but they want to stigmatize you to see like it's your fault why you gave birth to a disabled loved one in Sweden. The Swedish government does that to a lot of black people. So a lot of black people are stuck and confused in Sweden. They don't know if, should I come out and say I have a disabled loved one, and then let the Swedish government come and take it away from me and tell me how it is my fault, or try to use the disability of that loved one to call the loved one a criminal. So most times people have taken their loved ones here in Sweden that are disabled and sending it to Africa, which is unfair. Because I remember when my family used to advocate for my brother, when we used to fight for my brother's kids, most people used to tell my mom that we should take him away to Africa, that if we can sneak my way to Africa, then it's going to be easy. But how long do you want people to run away with their kids? United Nations, you see a country that is stealing people's loved ones and taking the disability of their loved ones and abusing, and then you call them humanitarians. And black people are so terrified. I know a lot of black families here in Sweden that have disabled loved ones, and the one thing that they are so scared of every day, they'll tell is that I don't want one day for the social worker to come and seize my child for me and tell me how my child is going to move into a group home, or is going to be in an institution, or is going to be put in a Swedish home based on the fact that I'm not good enough to take care of my child, or based on the fact that it's my fault to why my child has a disability, or based on the fact that my child's disability, now they're using it as a criminal thing to take advantage of my child. And this is something that black people should not be scared of. And the shameful part of it and the disgusting part of it is that the United Nations is doing nothing to intervene into those cases. A lot of black people are complaining how the Swedish government is using their disabled loved ones to take advantage of their disabled loved one and deprive those people from their families and their loved ones. And United Nations, you're sitting there and instead struggling to cause within a Nobel Peace country. What is nobility? What is peace? Peace is, what is nobility and what is peace, United Nations? What is all those things? Sweden is here terrorizing black people and seizing their loved ones, and all you want to do is call this country a lovely and peace and Nobel country. That is ridiculous. That's why I started making videos and documenting my autistic brother, because I always say this, I'm not just doing that to give interest, I'm doing that to create awareness, because most times people don't know what a lot of black people face in Scandinavia in general. There's a lot of abuse going on black people here in Scandinavia. And the bad thing is that the system is the one sponsoring the abuses. Everybody that has abused my autistic brother in Sweden, all of them have a job in the Swedish system. All of them are currently working in the Swedish system. All of them are getting paid. The current doctor that is sitting right now and calling my autistic brother a criminal and depriving him not to be with his family, not to have any contact with his family, that doctor is going to get a salary at the end of the month. Every 25th, that doctor goes to the Swedish government and collects a salary. So you see how racists can live in Sweden and get paid to be a racist. You see how in this 21st century, we still have countries that are still paying racists, are still rewarding racists to be racist. And the United Nations will stand there and call these countries humanitarian countries, call them top best countries in the world. What is top best about them, United Nations? That somebody's loved ones is being abused, and that person doesn't have a way out because the entire system is the one choking that person. Because that's why I've told Sweden that I'll keep documenting my brother and I'll keep updating you guys about everything that is happening to him, because it's not just about my family, it's not just about my autistic brother, but it's a wake-up call for to see that some of these are entities or bodies that are claiming how, oh, we want to fight, we want a fair and equal society. These people, you guys are still the ones praising the people that are out here practicing inequality. Because how does a country like Sweden, where racists and Nazis have a job in the system, where racists can proudly brag about the fact that they can abuse black people and get away with it, end up as a humanitarian country, United Nations? How did all that happen? How? And you say you want a fair and equal society? You cannot have a fair and equal society when you allow countries like Sweden or allow Scandinavian countries to feel that they own black people. They can take advantage of black people. They can mistreat black people. They can treat black people in whichever awful manner that it suits them. And nobody gets to question them. Nobody gets to investigate them. Nobody cares to liberate those black people from their abuse. That is wrong. And that's why I decided to start documenting my autistic and intellectual disabled brother, because I want people to see that in this 21st century, we still look, some of these are humanitarian countries that United Nations is trying to paint to us. These are the people that are even leading in violation of human rights. Because if you go to my brother's Facebook page called My Autism Journey in Sweden, or his Instagram account or his TikTok account, you see a lot of videos where you see how Swedish people are being very rude and arrogant and the kind of horrible and racial slur and racial insults that they throw at my family. And these people are people that have a job in the system. These are people that are working in the system, that come to work every day to come and abuse a black person and go home, and then at the end of the month they go and collect a salary as a job or doing their job in a country, and the United Nations will step out and say that country that has employed a racist and is paying a racist for the hours and the time that the racist has invested in abusing another human being, that is humanitarian. That is not humanitarian. That is not. There's no possibility how you can see that as a humanitarian thing, except that United Nations is telling us that black people are not put in the title of humanity. Or when they talk about humanitarianism, they don't include us blacks, because that's what indirectly United Nations is trying to tell the whole world. Because till today, I cannot fathom the idea how Scandinavians that are leading in the fact that a lot of racists and Nazis can work comfortably here in Scandinavia. These people are humanitarians. I don't understand. How is that possible, United Nations? These countries, Scandinavian countries, have a lot of racists and Nazis inside their system. And the racists and the Nazis in Scandinavia, they don't even care. They are so proud. I have videos where people have told me on my brother's Facebook page, Janet, if you like, you can record me. Even if you record me and put that in the media, nobody's going to say anything. And it's true. And I've put those tapes out there and nobody has said anything. People are watching those tapes. Swedish people are watching those tapes, and they're pretending as if they're not seeing. And that individual is repetitively abusing my autistic and intellectual disabled brother. And the United Nations will step out there and tell us that we should see Sweden as a humanitarian country. In what aspect has Sweden fill the criteria? I know that you talk about your treaties and you talk about optional protocols, that when countries sign all these things, they have to keep to it. But it's not just signing a treaty and signing an optional protocol that you're going to keep the rights of disabled people or the rights of human beings. It's also the fact that did these people that signed these treaties and this optional protocol, did they ever practice it? Did they ever go to their countries and make sure that, oh, in our countries, did they follow those policies or those rules that were put in place? They did not. Sweden has not followed it. Sweden is a country where racists and Nazis are so proud to be in their midst. Racists and Nazis feel like they own the Swedish system. They feel like they don't have to change, and nobody says or try to stop them or do anything to stop them. So how many people have to fall victim of it? And then according to United Nations, when we call a country a humanitarian country, is because they have signed a treaty that they're going to respect the rights of people. It's because they've signed the optional protocol where they're going to. And then you have the so-called the monitoring system in United Nations thing where they talk about how they're monitoring countries that have signed those treaties. So United Nations, if you're monitoring those countries, haven't you seen that Sweden is violating those protocols that they claim to have signed? Haven't you seen that? Because I don't understand how your monitoring system is working, but people like Sweden are still under the dark, exploiting and abusing people, and nobody's saying anything. United Nations. So if you're truly monitoring your countries that have signed to protect the rights of people and the rights of disabled people, and Sweden is here creating institutions where they're taking a lot of black people, immigrant kids, and dumping it into that institution, and they're being abused, and your monitoring system is not seeing it, then we have to question United Nations monitoring system. If you're truly monitoring to be objective, or you're monitoring based on race, looking at countries before you call them out for the abuse towards other people. And that's why I've decided to document my brother, and that's why I've decided to talk a lot about my brother, because a lot of times people don't understand what goes on to a lot of us black people and immigrants that have moved to Sweden. You guys don't know the kind of abuse that we face. There's a lot of abuse, a lot of racism that is going on, that is covered by the system, and United Nations is aware of it, but United Nations has denied to adamantly go on and do an investigation on Sweden, or try to stop Sweden, or try to liberate those people from the abuses. On the contrary, United Nations is just folding its arms and watching, and these innocent people have to suffer and suffer. It is wrong at all parts. It's wrong, and that's why I've decided to say, you know what, I'm going to use my family story as a wake-up call for people to see what we're talking about here in Sweden. When I talk about the fact that people are getting abused in Sweden, or racism and Nazis are the ones controlling the Swedish system, you can see that when you watch the videos that I've put about my autistic brother in Sweden. You can see how a racist and a Nazist can come to work in Sweden every day and take advantage of another human being and get away with it, because the Swedish society doesn't see that to be a problem. The abuser will instead call the police and tell the police that they want their victim to be locked up, and the victim gets locked up. And I've put that tape and that video on my brother's Facebook page. You can watch it. I instead got locked up. I'm a criminal in the Swedish system. According to the Swedish people right now, in 2022, I got in the Swedish statistics as a criminal. My mom is inside the Swedish statistics as a criminal because she's also an advocate. She's a social worker. She's studying social work. She's going to graduate next year in June. So she's in her last year. She's also an advocate. She's advocating a lot about how blacks too are being abused here in Sweden. She's also a criminal in the Swedish system. My autistic brother, he's also a criminal in Sweden, because that's what they do here in Sweden. If you try to oppose them or try to talk about racism or try to ask them why they treat you awfully, or why they treat you in a racial manner, they instead label you as a criminal, and then they continue the abuse on you. The racists have so much power. They have enormous power given to them by the system. The system goes an extra mile to protect racists. And these racists have gathered this enormous power where they feel that they can just do whatever they want to their victims. So it's not that easy to fight racism in Sweden. It's not that easy to talk about racism in Sweden. It's not that easy to just say, oh my God, I've been racial upon, let me come out. No, that's the difference between Sweden and America. Because America, you can just come out and start talking, oh, I've been racial upon, and then everybody will just rally with you and fight. No, in Sweden, I know people that want to rally with my family and fight, but if they do rally with my family, let me tell you what will happen to them. They will lose their jobs. The government will come after them like they've come after my family. So these people can only rally with my family behind closed doors. They can only console my family behind closed doors. They can only talk to my family behind closed doors and be like, oh, I hope everything goes well for Emmanuel. I hope your brother gets help. I hope everything falls in place. But they cannot publicly come out, because if they publicly come out, the government is going to attack them, because that's how the Swedish government addresses racism. They attack the people that want to talk or expose them for their racial act. Guys, that was it for today. I'm updating you guys about my autistic brother here in Sweden. You can follow his Facebook page called My Autism Journey here in Sweden, his Instagram account, My Autism Journey here. My Autism Journey in Sweden, his TikTok account, My Autism Journey. There are a lot of videos, a lot of tips that you can watch to understand more about his story, because it's very important that you guys understand it, because when you understand his story, you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about racism in Sweden. I talk about why Black people have a hard time to talk about racism in Sweden. Guys, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, called Analysis with Janet. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok, called Analysis with Janet, and on Facebook, called Analysis with Janet. And also don't forget to follow my brother's Facebook page, stroke Instagram account, stroke TikTok account, called My Autism Journey in Sweden. Oh, thank you guys. I hope to see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.